Hello everybody, welcome back to Soul Studios. I'm your host Soul, and today we're doing another speed paint because, you know, I'm a little bit bored. I also had nothing planned for this week. I kept thinking I was gonna make something. I was gonna do an animation or something cool, maybe something really neat, because we've passed 200 subscribers. Last time I checked, it was like 223. I don't know what it is at this very moment, but we'll see. At the time of the uploading, I wouldn't be surprised if it was still just 223, because I'll get, like, spurts of subscribers, and then it'll be dead for, like, a day, and then a bunch more will come over. I don't know what you people see in this channel. I take that back. I put a lot of work into this channel. I put a lot of work into the animations and the videos in general, and I try to make them the very best that they can be with everything that I have. I don't know what the word I'm searching for is. Equipment-wise, I only have so much equipment and so many softwares that I use, and I try to make the best out of them. I'm also running off a budget of free. All the software that I use is free. That's part of the reason why on animations there's the flip-a-clip watermark, because I just refuse to buy the full version. I'm poor. Also, before I continue talking, I have a brother that's playing Fortnite downstairs. I also live in a house with like 5-6 other people. So if there is background noise, then I do apologize. It's really hard to find a place that's really quiet to record. But I'm trying my best. Anyway, let's get on to important matters. What are we speed painting today? Well, I will tell you. Today we are doing my two characters, Cherry and Claw. Cherry and Claw do not get a lot of mentions, and that's mainly because they're both dead. Yeah, they're here for backstory purposes. And whose backstory, you may ask? Well, that's an easy answer. It's Soultail. Soultail's backstory. These are Soultail's parents. Cherry is his mother, Claw is his father, and Miss Leaf is his sister, but she's not in this one. We don't have to talk about her much. So yeah, Cherry and Claw, as far as Soultail's backstory, are only mentioned in the beginning because, well, I say they're both dead. They're actually not. Cherry is. Claw is just off in his own world. He's not a part of his kids' lives anymore. And I'll get more into that in a minute. But first, let me say, it has been a really long time since I've drawn these two, and I actually had to remember what their designs were. They do have designs. I've drawn them multiple times before. But it's really hard to just stick with one design. For Cherry, I wanted her to be like sort of plump, fluffy, non-threatening look. And yeah, I also added a collar. Usually when I draw Cherry, I don't draw a collar, but she's a kitty pet and I wanted to illustrate that fact. And so yeah, she gets a collar. So that's what I was going for Cherry. And then for Claw, I wanted sort of a more skinny, lean, almost spiky look, a sharper look, because he's a loner and he's lived on his own for a long time, and he really is just sort of sharp, spiky, needly, doesn't want anyone to touch him type thing. Very, very cold, very off, just very don't come near me, I will kill you type vibes. So yeah, that's their design. Originally, and I can't believe I did this, I cringe thinking about it now. Originally, back when I made these characters, back when I was like 10, 11? Was it 11? It might have been, actually, I think it was more like 12. Anyway, back when I first made these characters, I was going off of the Canon Warriors universe. I actually wasn't. I was making up my own Warriors universe, but that doesn't matter. I made Claw a part of Blood Clan, and he originally had a collar, and it had like a bunch of spikes and teeth and claws and whatnot in it. And thinking back on it now, I hate that version of Claw because it doesn't make any sense. why would he be with Cherry, who's a kitty pet, when he's in BloodClan? And it didn't make sense for me, and it just didn't make sense for me. Claw may be cold and just overall very bleh, but he isn't BloodClan. That, I don't know, for me, BloodClan just screams extremist, and Claw's not that. Like I said, he may be cold and whatnot, he may not want to be around anybody, but he's not an extremist. He has his own thoughts, he has his own plans, he has things that just don't make sense to everybody else, but he's not an extremist. So anyway, that's these two. That's my design thoughts for these two. Cherry, as for personality, Cherry is like that plump, motherly stereotype. Think Disney animated movies plump motherly stereotype. So we're talking like the first one that comes to mind is Mrs. Potts. I know there are more. I just gotta think of them. Mrs. Potts. There are more. I swear there are more. But think Mrs. Potts, except slightly younger. And you have Cherry. She's like that. She's just very motherly, very kind, very sweet, very gentle. Maybe a little on the little bit too trustworthy side. But I also would like to say that probably the being on the more trustworthy side, I think, would have a lot to do with the fact that she's a kitty pet. So she's not around these very dangerous types very often. The dangerous types very often. The most dangerous cat that she's probably ever encountered would be Claw, and he ended up falling in love with her. The two fell in love, so no lesson learned there. She's very trustworthy. She thinks that most cats have good in them, and unless shown otherwise, all cats have good in them. So, she would probably easily be lured into the forest and killed. If some cat wanted to do that, they probably would have no problem. Yeah, so Claw and Cherry. Cherry, she made an excellent mother. I will say that. Whenever I think of Soultail's backstory, I think a lot of just his good attributes, the things that make him just one of the best characters, his good side, it all came from Cherry. Maybe a little bit from his own learned experiences too, but just her mothering skills and how she raised him, it makes me happy to think about, because like she would have been like the best mother, despite the trusting everyone on first sight. That's something she actually did try to teach to her kids, but because they also had Claw as their father, they learned better quickly. So yeah, and she loved her children, and something I've always despised myself for on Cherry as a whole, when I was creating her and thinking about what would happen to her over the course of the story, I always hated that I made her die, and now I just can't seem to erase that fact. Trust me, I've tried. I've thought of, like, certain scenarios where Cherry lived and actually was in her children's lives for a little while longer before they left and joined their group called Dusk. And I couldn't get around it. I made her dying a part of the plot, a major part of the plot, and I couldn't erase it. And that was, like, so heartbreaking for me, because that, like, really scarred her kids. Soultail and Miss Leaf, that taught them the world is not all sunshines and rainbows, and despite what Cherry had taught them, life isn't always gonna go your way, and it's not always gonna be good. So yeah, just really sad. Cherry, I guess I should mention this. Cherry, when Soultail and Miss Leaf were probably they weren't like babies, but they were getting a little bit old enough to understand some things. She was run over by a car, and it was just so sudden, and it's traumatizing to think about. Why did I kill off my main character's mother in like the first few months of his life? That's horrible. I feel awful about it, but needed for plot purposes. We love Cherry. She's amazing. So now let's move on to Claw. Like I've said about 1,000 times over the course of this video so far, Claw is not social. He doesn't want to be around anybody. He doesn't want to be all lovey-dovey. He don't want to show nobody any sort of fun, loving, gentle attention. He wants to be left alone, essentially. And it was like, he didn't want to fall for Cherry, but he did. It just happened. He couldn't help it. She was just so loving and gentle, and she trusted him completely. He just couldn't help it. It just happened. Claw is a loner. His parents didn't necessarily die when he was at a young age. They just didn't show much affection towards him. And so therefore he wasn't touch-starved or attention-starved or anything. He just learned to get on without it. And so when cats tried to show him any attention, he was just like, I don't need it. It's not a part of my life. Meeting Cherry was like a whole new experience for him. It was just kind of like, what is this cat doing? And of course he had a little bit of disdain for her because she's a kitty pet and she couldn't possibly know what it's like in the wild, but lo and behold, she's slightly smarter than she lets on. I mean, she's still a kitty pet, and I myself hold no prejudice over kitty pets or anything, but she's still a kitty pet. She's a little bit naive, and Claw just had to protect the bean. So, yeah. As a father, Claw is just sort of bleh. I don't know how else to put that. Of course he's there for his kids, but he's not quite as loving or affectionate as Cherry is. He'll teach them what they need to know, but that's about as far as it goes. And when Cherry died, that got 10 times worse. You would think he would actually try and look out more for his kids, but because he was just so afraid of hurt and losing another part of his family, he shut off. And another thing is, he thought it would be good for him. He grew up not having a ton of attention from his parents, and in turn decided that maybe that's what was best for his kids. They needed to get along in life without having to depend on anyone for affection or love or whatever, just because not everyone was going to shower them with affection and such. Not everyone was going to treat them as good as Cherry had treated them. So he basically shunned his children. I don't like Claw. I don't. When I made him, it was just simply, at the time, I don't know what I was thinking, because he's such a, I want to say a bad father, but there's part of me that thinks he really is a good father inside. He just doesn't know how to show it. Except he shunned his kids. And then when they tried to leave, because they did, after so long where they were living, and Claw was there, technically watching over them, but he just wasn't. He was just going through the motions, I guess. They weren't learning anything, because he wasn't showing them anything. So when they decided to leave him, move on their own, he threw a tantrum about it. And this is a part of the backstory that I never understood, and I don't understand why it's the way it is. Why Claw would care that they left. Because this has always been a part of the backstory that I just didn't understand, because Claw wasn't there for them at any given point in time. I mean, when Cherry was alive, he would show them some life skills, I guess. But when Cherry died, he was non-existent as a father. He did nothing. And so, in the story, when Soul and Miss Leaf decide to leave, strike out on their own, find their own path in life, protect each other, and Claw is like, no. I never understood that part. And there's a part of me that really wants to change it, but another part of me that's like, it's also something that's a little bit crucial to the story. Because in that moment when they do decide to leave, it really shows how attached Claw really is to them, and how he thinks they're supposed to be with him. And I think that was, I know this probably doesn't make a lot of sense and I'm rambling here, so let me try and put it simpler. So when Soultail and Miss Leaf got to a certain age and they were kind of done with Claw's mess, they didn't want to be ignored anymore. They decided to strike out on their own, because why would their dad care? Claw throws a fit. He doesn't want to allow them to leave. He wants them to stay with him. And when Soultail finally is like, no, we're leaving, Claw gives him, let's just say, a little something to remember him by. He scratches him across the back of the ears, and now Soultail has 2 permanent scars on the backs of his ears where Claw has messed them up. And this actually kind of affects Soultail's hearing. I've never really mentioned that fact before, but Soultail, he can hear almost as well as any other cat, but just slightly worse, because he's got those scratches, and they messed him up. So yeah, Claw was attached to his children. It just wasn't apparent, and it wasn't very evident until they were about to leave, and he's like, oh my god, this is the last of my family. What am I gonna do? And I think that's the thought process I had. Like, I was like 12 when I wrote this, and this was a part of the story that I almost want to rewrite, but I don't think I'm going to, just because Claw needs maybe a little bit of humanity in him. Yeah, so that was my thought process with Claw. I know that was a lot. So yeah, Claw and Cherry. If you guys have any questions about these two, leave them down in the comments. I will try and answer them the best I can. I know I started rambling there for a while. So yeah, and I figured I need to explain these two because I really want to make a series about Soultail and his backstory and everything that's happened. I don't want to say anything more about his backstory because the rest of it will be revealed in the series. And, but I did want to set these two up, just show you who they were and what happens to them, because while it is, when and if I do make this series, it will be a part of it, but it's not going to be, I'm not going to linger on it for a long time. And I just wanted to show these two characters, plus these two characters don't get a lot of love. They're here, but they just don't get a lot of love, I guess. So yeah, I want to start making this series really soon because it would be so much fun. I'd love to get a couple of people together to actually voice act for it, if I ever do make it, because it would be an audio drama. It would not be a fully animated series because I don't have that kind of willpower right now. Yeah, I want to get people to voice act for it, and if I did get people to voice act for it, and if I started working on it sooner rather than later, I'd probably only ask people at first, because for the first few episodes, for only the voices of Soul, Claw, Cherry, and Miss Leaf. Anyway, I'm getting done here, so I'm gonna quit rambling now. Maybe I'll make another video where I talk about wanting to do the animated series, but anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and learning about these characters. Y'all stay safe, drink some water, remember to breathe, and I will see you in the next video.